I'm Francesco De Cecco and I teach the module called Challenges in International Trade Law. So I've recorded this video to help you understand what this module is about, how it's taught, and how it's assessed, so that you can decide if this module is for you. Maybe the best way to understand what the module is about is to start from the title, Challenges in International Trade Law. Why challenges? Well, there are a number of challenges around trade law. These are challenges from global trade. Global trade can be seen as a challenge to things like economic development, etc. And this is very much the debate around globalization. But there are also challenges to global trade and the global trade system. And these challenges are from policies. You will recall that the former US President Donald Trump started trade wars during his presidency against China and other countries, the EU and other countries. And the consequences of these trade wars are still being felt around the world. There are, of course, other challenges to global trade, from the COVID-19 pandemic, for instance, that slowed down the flow of trade around the globe considerably, and we're still recovering from that. So the module is about how international trade law, the regulation of international trade, deals with these challenges that emerge from global trade, but also challenges to the global trade system. So let's look at some examples. Climate change is the most obvious one. It's obvious to me at this time, as we re-emerge from a heat wave in the UK. My office is still very warm, despite the fact that the temperature's gone down 20 degrees from what it was a couple of days ago. So the question is here, how does the world trading system and the regulation of the world trading system deal with this emergency? Is it fit for purpose? And what about things like vaccine patents? Does WTO law stand in the way of developing countries producing their own vaccines? The fairness question also springs to mind when considering debates around world trade. Is WTO law and the other rules of the international trade law system address the question of fairness sufficiently? And what about social dumping, by which we mean the practice where countries with lower social and labour standards sell their goods to countries with higher social and labour standards, higher wages, for instance? Is that fair trade? Should WTO law address these kind of issues? And when it comes to the law itself, the rules of the WTO, how are they made, and is the process sufficiently democratic? And how are the rules, how is WTO law enforced? You may have heard of the crisis in the WTO appellate body, and this is the result of one of the policies of decisions of former President Trump, but it's still ongoing, in that the US administration has boycotted the highest court, if you like, in the WTO system, the appellate body. So that links to the question of the balance of power within the world trading system and the different positions of different nations within them. For instance, the United States likes to portray itself as a champion of the so-called rules-based international order. But at the same time, it has, some would say, done considerable damage to that order by doing things like boycotting the appellate body of the WTO. So these are the questions that we address in the module. Coming to how the module is taught and assessed, well, it all happens in semester 1. It's a 20 credit module, and we have a series of workshops which are basically semi-structured interactive lectures. Interactive in the sense that there is a discussion between myself and those who attend. In terms of assessment, there's a formative 500-word essay which allows you to test out your ideas in a short piece of work first, and then you have a final summative essay, 3,500 words, where you have to answer 1 out of 6 questions. In terms of the approach that I take, as you will understand from the title of the module and how I've explained it, it's a contextual approach. In other words, law is very much analyzed and examined in its political and economic context. Now, this doesn't mean that we only look at the politics and economics. No, that's not the case. We look at the law, but it's impossible to examine the law without asking questions about the context of how the rules are made and what effects they have on wider social issues. There is no need for you to buy a textbook because all the reading materials are available through the library and are available online. So to recap, what is this module for you? Well, it's suited to non-lawyers and lawyers alike, in the sense that you don't need to have a legal background in law to take this module. If you're interested in current affairs and how the law shapes and is shaped by wider societal forces, this is a module that you will find interesting, and it's a module that allows you to develop research skills and to develop your interest in the areas that you choose to address, because the 3,500 word essay is on an area of your choosing. You have 6 different topics, as I said, so you pick the topic that most suits your interests and preferences. So I hope this video was helpful, and I very much look forward to meeting you in September.